Welcome to my video on number systems. We're going to look specifically at decimal places, significant figures and scientific notation in this video. So let's start with the decimal places, and we have 4 questions on decimal places. So looking at these ones here, with decimal places, what you really have to watch out for is just how many numbers do they say to what decimal place. They're not usually a full question. They're usually at the end of a question. It's not something to worry about until you have your question completed, and then go back, take a look to see, did they write how many decimal places they want something to. So in these questions here, the first one, it says write 3.14159 corrected 2 decimal places. So that means 2 decimal places means that we want 2 numbers after the decimal. So the number that I'm going to end up keeping are these 2 numbers after the decimal. So my answer to that question would be 3.14, and everything else turns into a 0, but we don't need to write it once it's after decimal. We leave our answer written like that. Second question, we have the same number, right, 3.14159, but now it's correct to 3 decimal places. That means we need now 3 numbers after the decimal. Now this one we need to be a little bit more careful with, because when I underline those 3 numbers, in the previous question, the number directly after the 2 numbers I underlined was the number 1, which means that it's not going to affect it. However, if the number after the numbers I'm going to keep are the number 5 or higher. So in this case here, I'm keeping the 141. The next number is 5. That means that it's closer to 142 than it is to 141. So if that number is 5 or higher, so 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, then that means I need to round up, and that I'm going to keep that as 3.142. It's only ever the last digit that's affected. So the only one that could possibly be affected here is this number 1. And it is affected because the next number is 5 or higher. Whereas here, in the previous question, the number 4 was the last number I was keeping. Is that being affected by the one after it? It's not. The one after it is the number 1. So then I have my answer. I keep it as the number 4. I'll never go down. I'll never go down a number. That 4 will never change to be a 3, for instance, but it can go up. So it'll either stay as it is or it will go up. If we take a look then at the next question, the part 3, it says write 2.798 correct 2 decimal places. So again, we know it's 2 decimal places, which means I need 2 numbers directly after the decimal, which means I'm going to keep the 7 and the 9. Okay, because I'm keeping the 7 and the 9, I check the number directly after that, and I can see that that's the number 8. Now, because that number 8 is 5 or higher, it means I need to now round up my last number. But if I round up the number 9, I get to 10. So I'm not going to change that to be 2.710, because that's a completely different number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it as if it's the number 79. And what I do in that case then is I round that to be 2.80. And that then is taken into account that this was 798. So that 798 was closer to 80, or to 800 than it was to 79. Our last question here then, it says write 29.542 correct to a whole number. So a whole number means that there will be no decimal, but the same rule applies as earlier. I'm going to underline now the part that I'm keeping. So I'm going to keep the 29. But I have to check my last number there, that 9, and I have to check and see the number directly after it. Is it 5 or higher? It's the number 5, which means that I need to round my 9 up. As we saw in part 3, when we round the number 9 up, we don't change it to be a 10. It means that we take this as 29 instead. So that I now have a 29 there. So if that's 29, then that is going to end up rounding up to be the number 30. And that's how I do my decimal places. So a couple of little things to make sure that we remember here. When you're rounding, you always take the number, that many, after the decimal. So in our first question, we took 2 after the decimal. In the second question, we took 3 after the decimal. The next thing is I underline the numbers that I'm going to keep, and I check the number directly after that. If the number directly after that is 5 or higher, I need to round my last number up. The ones I need to be careful for is if I'm trying to round a 9 up. If I'm trying to round a 9 up, I take the number before that and I round it up as if it's a 2-digit number. The same way here that we did with the 7 and the 9 in question 3, and the 2 and the 9 in question 2.